Briahna, do you have an absolutely favorite political news show that you can't miss other than Rising?
I was going to say Rising, of course.
Well, unfortunately, Joe Biden is not a loyal viewer of Rising, as far as I can tell. The show that he loves and can't miss is MSNBC's Morning Joe. According to Axios, when White House aides appear on MSNBC's Morning Joe, they're often booked between 7 and 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time so that they can reach one crucial and loyal viewer, President Joe Biden. Meanwhile, the outlet also claimed that Joe Scarborough, a former GOP congressman who turned into a Trump critic, is often called by the president to hear his opinion on various issues. Biden pays particular attention to and has consulted with Morning Joe regulars, such as longtime reporter Mike Barnicle, foreign policy expert Richard Haass, and historian John Meacham. Axios also reported that VP Kamala Harris hosted a private dinner for Scarborough and his Morning Joe co-host, wife, Mika Brzezinski. Walter Kern and Greg Gutfeld had a field day with this news. Let's take a listen over at Fox News.
So we find out that Morning Joe is programming Naptime Joe every day.
Yeah.
Okay? This used to happen with the Days of Our Lives and my grandma. Like, we knew if some wife cheated on her husband at dinner, she'd be talking about adultery is terrible. And so because he's being programmed, his aides are now being forced to watch the show so they can anticipate what he's going to be concerned about during the day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what a crazy situation in which, you know, whoever is putting Joe, Morning Joe's words in his ears is actually whispering into the president's mind. So that's the most powerful person in America, some producer at MSNBC.
Right. That's frightening.
I found this interesting because of all of the news coverage of Trump's media consumption habits and how that was often used as an indictment of him, that he was cable news obsessed, that he just, Fox News specifically. Remember all the idea, he never reads, he doesn't read books, it's so damning.
But more specifically, the argument that was being made was that Fox News had an undue influence over Donald Trump, which I think makes it somewhat hypocritical for the folks here at Fox to be saying how untoward it is for Joe Biden to be in the same situation. I would agree with both, but I'm not sitting at one of the news organizations that used to, brag and love having that kind of influence, now criticizing it when the other side is in that seat. But I do think it's even worse in some respects for Joe Biden because Joe Scarborough is a Republican. Like, it's insane. Like, there isn't some liberal sitting on Fox News that Donald Trump is. It doesn't matter. It's a Republican. And the fact that people even make those kind of excuses, oh, a never Trump Republican. Okay, if the Democratic Party wants to say they're just never Trump Republicans, that's fine. But don't be mad when millions of people say I'm not a Democrat, because I'm not just a never Trump Republican. I stand for things. I affirmatively wanted to support a party that said it was going to stick its neck out and fight for labor, working people, basic human rights. Like, that's what the Democratic Party is supposed to be. And I know that sounds laughable because it hasn't been that in very many years. But the Democratic can't turn around and then try to voter blame and voter bash when people who care about a genocide in Gaza or who care that they can't afford health care in the richest country in the world where we're sending billions of dollars to Israel want a different kind of option. And so, yes, I think you're completely right. This was exactly the same kind of narrative that liberals relished when the shoe was on the other foot. And furthermore, with this Axios reporting, there's some other interesting stuff. Apparently, Kamala Harris also watches Morning Joe, but she also watches The Five. Apparently, this is from Alex Thompson at Axios. She tunes into Fox News, occasionally watches The Five. Some aides have felt that Fox News' relentlessly negative coverage, first casting her as Biden's all-powerful puppeteer, then later portraying her as incompetent, can drive Harris to distraction. Quote, it got in her head and caused high anxiety because they were constantly hammering her, end quote, one former Harris aide told Axios.
It's kind of incredible to me that Kamala Harris would have no idea that she's being made fun of a lot all over the place if she wasn't watching. Like, The Five is hardly the only Kamala Harris critical television program out there in the world. Doesn't she understand that that is the perception of her?
Well, I don't think that the implication here is that she thinks it's limited at 5, but I think that if you wanted to get a good sense of the nature of the critiques against you, I think that she's looking in the right place.
I mean, The question is one of the highest rated news programs on all of television.
Yeah, so the question is whether or not it's particularly constructive or helpful for her mental health to be watching, especially since I do think a lot of the criticism, and it is not substantive. I mean, it's hard to have substantive criticism of Kamala Harris because she's not doing anything.
She's vice president.
So if I were her, I mean, if it's just getting feedback on how you're coming across rhetorically, well, that could be some good feedback for you. But also, you should keep aware that, that you're low-hanging fruit, and people are making fun of you because they don't have a lot else to say substantively about you.
It's also theoretically something she could actually improve. She doesn't face, Joe Biden faces issues with, trying to actually get legislation through Congress is impossible, and the Republican Party is out to get him, and Trump and everything. Yeah. Kamala Harris, there's no exterior force stopping her from being a more effective communicator. That's just entirely on her. Yeah. It is interesting, though, that she does tune into Fox to hear what's going on. There was no indication in the reporting that Joe Biden does the same. He's just reliant on MSNBC, which is Morning Joe heavily covers threats to democracy related stuff with Trump, with Russiagate going back, all the way to that. I assume he's been a longtime viewer of Morning Joe. I can only imagine how that shaped his views on a whole host of issues from the Russiagate discourse and. Well,
I think more pernicious than Morning Joe as a host is the idea that apparently, according to this reporting, he is more inclined to listen to particular guests that they have on with frequency, including kind of national security guests who, as you point out, are very hawkish. And so is he going to follow someone who he has come in contact with through Morning Joe as they continue to offer their opinions throughout the public space? And additionally, the Axios reporting says that he sometimes has one-on-one meetings with guests that he finds to be particularly informed or compelling from Morning Joe. So it really is a way to get your foreign policy perspective literally in front of the president and have an incredible amount of influence. And I will say, I would give credit to Kamala Harris for watching Fox News. There's no indication, as you said, that Biden did it or that Trump has ever tuned into MSNBC or CNN or, God forbid, an actual progressive outlet to see what other people in the world think of his own policymaking.
Again, it goes to show we have two very, very elderly men running to be the next president of the United States. Their media consumption habits, their viewing habits, they're watching cable news, it's just television. Are they listening to podcasts? Are they getting their news from social media or YouTube or any of the newsletters, all of the stuff that forms the new media ecosystem that we're a part of and we're a small part of? There's all those interesting, exciting voices out there that they are not if this isn't broadly indicative of how they get their news that shapes their views, it is totally in that older mindset, traditional mindset, even though there's so much out there. Again, that's another downside of having political candidates who are that old.
Yeah. They're
missing all of this wonderful banter. I would just love for them to tune in every now and then.
Yeah,
Wouldn't that be nice?
That's the pitch. Tune into Rising for banter and more, including tomorrow.
Yes, when Briahna and I will be back here for Tuesday to bring you tomorrow's headlines. We don't know what they are yet because tomorrow has not yet taken place.
Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while you're on the go, we're now available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
See you tomorrow.
Take care.